Hi everyone. So tonight we're going to continue with the second teaching on the trees that we spoke about last time, or the previous teaching. We're going to touch on some different aspects of the trees to do with the garden and everything. So just a quick recap. In the garden we said it had a tree of knowledge and a tree of good and evil. All right? The knowledge of good and evil. Those are the two trees that we read about that were standing in the middle of the garden. Again, a tree of life, which is about life, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What does that represent? A choice. You had to choose. That tree gives you a choice, good or evil. So you had to make correct choices or incorrect choices with that tree. So that tree is to do with choice. Man had to choose. Basically, what seed, fruit he is going to eat, Satan or Jesus. That's what the choice was, that he had to eat there and choose of. All right, so we spoke about men multiplied and became a forest. We spoke about that last week. We had the verses that we read about the men that multiplied and became a forest. Also, please remember this, Adam and Eve were the first two trees in the garden. All right, which God made, Adam and Eve. We're not saying they were not the first, they are the first. But then we read about multiple trees in the garden in scriptures later in the Bible. So why? Where does that come from? It says there were lots of trees, and there's verses stating that in your Bible. So what is this, lots of trees? It's the children of Adam and Eve. Because there's no timeline stated from the moment Adam and Eve, let's say, got married, till when they sinned. It could have been 1,000 years. We don't know. That's why there were lots of trees, because there was probably a long time they had lots of children. Looking today, if a husband and a wife, today we spoke about it, more Orthodox people, if you look at them today, they have children like 9 to 13 children, and they live only 70, 80 years. So imagine if you were 1,000 years, how many multiply. It could have been thousands of people in the garden. In 500 years, it can be tens of thousands, millions nearly. So that's where the scriptures find and says there were lots of trees in the garden. So they were all still in the garden. So I believe Adam and Eve stayed in that garden for a long time before they entered into sin. That's why we find lots of trees. And again, now another thing you must remember. So they sinned. The Bible does not say from the moment they sinned until the moment they exited the garden, how long that was. You all just assume it's immediately. But it doesn't say, why can't it be immediately? Because we read the verse last week, the trees in the garden started to have envy against one another. They couldn't have had envy before sin because there were no sin. So the envy only came in after sin. So there was a time period between them sinning and taken out of the garden. I don't believe it was instantly. Because otherwise there would not be a verse in the Bible saying the trees started to have envy. Because we know they couldn't have had envy before sin. Because there were no sin. Alright, so you understand that. Does it make sense for you? So you can see Adam and Eve, first trees. We're not saying they were not the first people. They were the first people. God created them. But because we don't see the timelines and people are so stuck in the ways they were taught, they don't think further. Or they don't read their Bible and see the other verses that's actually stating these facts, that there were lots of trees in the garden or that the trees started to envy. All right, so that's why. So that's a lot to wrap your mind around if you have never heard it before. To think, wow, there's time periods that's passed there that could have been from a year to 1,000 years. Because it's a perfect time. It's one day. So there could have a lot of things that can happen in 1,000 years, in 100 years. Go 100 years back and look where were mankind 100 years to where we are today. Only in 100 years. Go 200 years back, we were still on horses. Now we're flying jets and all the technology we have. And that's only in 200 years. So you can imagine how many times they multiplied and grew. And some of them left the garden because there were people outside the garden, because it was a long time. You don't read in your Bible they were forced to stay in the garden. So there's a lot of things we don't think about. We just accept what we were taught, but we don't think about it, because when you read there were people outside the garden, you've got to ask, where did they come from? How? Because when they left, there were people. So again, there's a time period, there's people that, there were no TVs back there, so there were lots of children made back then. All right, so go to this verse here. Genesis 3 verse 16, it says, to the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow, pain, and your conception. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Remember, I said this, I will greatly multiply your sorrow, meaning you've been doing this for a while, but from now on there will be pain. Some translations just call it pain. So Eve had a lot of children before this happened, before sin entered. She just never had pain at conception because there was no sin. But when sin came, pain entered, fear entered, everything entered. So that's a verse that shows you. I'm telling you, pastors don't know even this verse. I've had pastors that had to explain this verse and they never saw it. And it's actually so clear to see that that's what it's saying there. Look at that translation. To the woman he said, I will greatly increase your labor pains. With pain you will give birth to children. I will greatly increase. So there were none, but he's increasing it. So she had children with no pain, and now he's increasing it. So it shows you it's been done before. So that's why when sin came, they had lots of children. And she had no pain. Huh, ladies? All right, so they were not afraid of having children or anything. There were no pain involved even. Here's the one that we spoke about, Ezekiel 31 verse 8. The cedars in the garden of God could not hide him, nor any tree in the garden of God was like unto him in his beauty. I have made him fair by the multitude of the branches, so that all the trees of Eden that were in the garden of God envied him. All right, here's another verse that's showing there's a lot of trees and stuff in the garden, and there's a time period because there's a lot of trees. People, it's talking about people, because all the things they say about these trees is things that human beings are doing. It's not what things that trees normally do. We get people that, I've seen it with my own eyes, if you talk about trees, people are like trees, they will immediately say, why, how can you say that, and how can you, there's no ways it can be. The trees cannot be people, and you're stupid if you say that. That's how they really go that way. I've seen it. I've spoken to people that said this. That shows you they've got no insight, because the verses clearly states the stuff. It shows you they don't read the Bible. But they will go in a mode of start attacking you for how can you be so stupid to say something like a tree is a person. But it's because they don't have that spiritual insight yet of what's going on. I said to you, we are made out of dust, out of ground. Trees grow out of dust, ground. Same thing. All the balance is there. Isaiah 11:1. Look at this now. A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots, a branch will bear fruit. I'm going to read other translations. Out of the stump of David's family will grow a shoot. Yes, a new branch bearing fruit from the old root. Then a shoot, the Messiah, will spring from the stock of Jesse, David's family, the father, the family where it comes out of, and a branch will from his roots will bear fruit. This is a prophecy of Isaiah saying, how is Jesus going to be? He's going to be a stump that's going to grow out of the family of David. It's beautiful to see. And look how they describe it. Like trees and stuff. They describe Jesus as how he's going to be born. Look at what Isaiah says here, Isaiah 60. The people also shall be all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever. The branch of my planting, the works of my hands, that I may be glorified. See, it's talking about the same thing here than we actually read in Isaiah. But it's to do with this tree, this one that's going to be planted. This one out of David's family, which is the Messiah, which is Jesus. And these are prophecies. It's a family tree. Yeah, family, you speak of your family tree. We've said this before, a lot of the sayings we have in our culture actually comes out of the Bible, the stuff that we say, and we don't normally think of things that happen in threes, We make it bad, but it's actually good. The good stuff is supposed to happen in threes, not bad, but yeah, all that stuff is out of the Bible. But yeah, Isaiah is prophesying, and he's saying the cutting, and when the cutting happens of these trees, the branch will come forth. All right? So the trees need to be cut. They were cut in 70 AD. They got cut. All right? When Rome walked into Jerusalem, the trees got cut. Jesus warned them, the access to the root. It's going to happen. The trees are going to get cut. You will see, we spoke about the cedars of the Lebanon. It's normally speaking about a big person, a kingdom, a king. And then they will say that he will get cut down, a king. A tree, this big massive tree, because it's depicting a king because of the size of the tree. Isaiah 11 verse 2. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. Remember, we just read Isaiah. Don't forget where I'm getting this verse. We read Isaiah. Before that, we read Isaiah 11 verse 1. This is verse 2. This branch that's coming out, this stump of Jesse, it's saying, and the Spirit on this stump, this thing, the Messiah, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. That one we read in verse 1. The Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. All right. Do you know where that verse is coming from? This, what they're saying here, can be seen as two things. It can be the candlestick, the menorah, which they're talking about, which is also a type of Jesus, and it's Jesus himself, which they're talking about here in this verse. You can see that the tree of life, basically, because it comes out of the tree of life, Jesus. Also remember, think of it this way. Out of the stem of Jesse came the tree of life. We just read it, all right? And it was nailed to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil on the cross. Did you get that? The tree of life was nailed to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the wooden cross, to get rid of that stuff. It's beautiful when you see that. Because at the cross, darkness was taken away forever. It was defeated. We are progressively walking in that victory. In times and seasons, it's walking out, but in God's timing, it was done, finished. We're just progressively walking out what he finished at the cross. The word Jesus of Nazareth, he was called a lot of times Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus of Nazareth. A lot of times they would say that to say from where this person is. They would call him Jesus of Nazareth to say he's from there. Nazareth was seen as a very bad place. Poor, nothing good came from Nazareth, they said. All right? So if you look at the meanings of it, of the word Nazarene, it actually means, if you look at it, a branch of no significance. Jesus of Nazareth, the branch. Nazareth, of no significance, that place. So when they say Jesus of Nazareth, they're actually saying the branch of no significance. That's what they're actually saying. And this branch is Jesus. Now, we are the branches crafted into this tree. We are crafted in him. Now, Revelations 22:2. 3 twos in there. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was there a tree of life. This is prophetic, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. It says there, 12 manner of fruits, this tree. Remember what we said? We know last week we spoke about the fruits, 12 manner of fruits. The city on the hill, it speaks about, had 12 pearl ports, the city on the hill. And remember, so this is talking about all these things that's connected. All these things in the Bible that are connected. And remember, the city on the hill, all this, is not a place. The New Jerusalem is not a place, it's a person. And it's us, it's persons. We are the New Jerusalem, we are the city on the hill. It's not a place that's going to happen one day and going to come. You see now with this war in Israel, how many YouTube videos are coming up about end times. It's flooding YouTube at the moment. And it's all to do with the beast and the mark of the beast and all the Temple Mount, and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. Sorry, that's not going to happen. Even with all those good intentions, that's not what's going on. Now let's go to the Old Testament. I've given you a lot of verses again about trees and how they work and which ones is the prophecies of Jesus, the tree of life. Now let's see what Job said way back. Job 14, verse 7. Let's start there. For there is hope of a tree. You know, we all know Job's story. Aswip was. So he's saying that he was sitting in a place where there was no hope. If you read Job's story, he had no hope. He lost everything. But he's saying here, for there is hope of a tree. If it be cut down, that it will sprout again, and that the tender branch thereof will not cease. Isn't that beautiful what he's saying about Jesus? He's going to get cut down. What happened to Jesus? Where was Jesus cut down? On the cross. But what came out of that cross is what's important. Which is you guys sitting here in front of me. You're part of that. That Job spoke about here. Though the root thereof wax old in the earth, and the stock thereof die in the ground, yet through the scent of water it will bud, and bring forth buds like a plant. Look, he's talking about trees here. Even Job understood what was going on. And remember when we spoke about when Jesus did all the praying for the sight to return, they saw people as trees. The one guy that he was praying for. Look at Isaiah 53. Who hath believed our report, and to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness. And when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. Verse 3, he is despised and rejected of man, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we did not esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. Who are they talking about? This plant? They're talking about Jesus here. All right. A lot of people quote that last verse for healings. Again, it must be in the right season. You can't just quote a verse and think it's going to work. What does it say here about this tree? This plant? Exactly what we just read what Job said, huh? He took our sins on a tree. Job said it. There's hope in a tree that will get cut down. That's what this Isaiah is saying here. I said we must live as palm trees. We spoke about that again. Upright. Can withstand and grow in the desert in difficult times. That's what we were supposed to be. We can withstand any storm. Our fruits is only for him. We don't just hand out fruits left, right, and center. We choose who must eat from us. There's a difference. Other trees, the fruit hangs so that anybody can pick it. Get this. Normal trees, anybody can pick off the fruit and eat it. Doesn't matter who. It's available for everybody. And not a palm tree. The palm tree doesn't allow anybody to come up to the fruit because the fruit's right at the top. It's a narrow road to get to the fruit. It takes a lot of difficulty knowing how to climb a palm tree to get to the top. It's not an easy thing. So don't hand out your fruits to anybody. They must be worthy to eat from the top, because it's only actually his that you share. All right? You see why we are palm trees and not normal trees? In the beginning, the first Adam was in a garden. We're going to end with this subject here now. In the beginning, the first Adam was in a garden. Then later, a couple of thousand years later, yeah, Monique, is your story. Monique loved this because she did a lot of it. The last Adam, which is Jesus, he calls himself. There's not going to be another Adam. There was one Adam, and then the last Adam, which is Jesus says he is. He had to go to a place where it all began, the Garden of Gethsemane. He had to go there. Jesus went to the garden for a specific reason. He could have gone anywhere before they catch him, before the soldiers came, but he chose to go to the garden. I'm not going to talk about what happened in the garden. I want to show you why he went to the garden. Why did the tree of life go back to the garden where we all started? He went back there. He went to the exact place where sin entered. And he came to stop sin. So he had to go to the beginning where it all started, in the garden, to deal with sin. Men fell by choosing wrongly in the first garden. Now Jesus comes back. And amidst all of what's happening, he had to choose again. But he chose life. He made the choice for us now because we failed the first time, Adam, man. And we all would have failed like Adam failed. None of us would have been better than Adam or Eve. We would all made the same mistake. So we will stop blaming them. Shame. I don't know how they feel in heaven with everybody blaming them. We all would have done the same thing. When we read about the Garden of Gethsemane, there is a place in the Bible, if you want to write that down, where you will find the scriptures of the Garden of Gethsemane. It's mentioned in all the Gospels. But again, if you are a Bible scholar, you read all of them, not just one. Because there's different things said by different people. Remember, those stories are written by people that as eyewitness or heard from somebody. So everyone's got a different angle where they were that day. So that's why you read all the Gospels, or all the stories in the Gospels, so you can understand what was going on there, to get the full story behind the story. Gethsemane means oil press. Oil press. It's a place where pressure is applied. Oil press. Now I'm going to read this. I have to read I'm just going to read the one. It's got Matthew's got more of the story. It doesn't got a lot of detail, but it's got a story. Most of the story in here. Then comes Jesus with them unto the place called Gethsemane, and said unto the disciples, Sit ye here while I go and pray yonder. And he took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee. Who's the two sons of Zebedee? If you don't know, read the other Gospels, they say their names. Who's the three that Jesus always took with him? Peter, James, and John. The three special disciples who loved him more. Yeah, sons of thunder. But if you read the other Gospels, they would name them by name. And began to be sorrowful and very heavy. Then saith he unto them, My soul is exceeding sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry ye here, and watch with me. Now, if you can read this and you want to do a Bible study about this, Monique was looking at a lot of things. Is how many times he prayed? 3 times. What he said to whom? It's a lot of things in it, but we're not going to go there tonight. That's not what we're busy with. But there's a lot of things that happen in this garden. Because again, like I said, why 3 times did he have to go and pray? And why did they fall asleep? And how did they? There's a lot of things. And he went a little further and fell onto his face and prayed, saying, Oh, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. A cup. Go look in your Bible how many times a cup is mentioned from Genesis. It's everywhere. And it's all normally talking about something people go through, something that's got to happen, a cup. All right? A cup of sorrows or whatever. But there's different, in the Bible there's a lot of places where they speak about this cup that I've got to drink. But then they would say of something bad or good or whatever the case may be. But it gets mentioned a lot. Yeah, it's not my cup of tea. Yeah, it is actually, it's also meaning what they're saying here. You don't want to drink of that thing. You don't want to partake in that thing. All right? Again, the thing that we use today, that is coming out of your Bible. And he comes up to the disciples and findeth them asleep, and said unto Peter, What could ye not watch with me 1 hour? All right, he goes to Peter here. Watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. Remember that. They're in the garden, he's saying to Peter, stay awake so that you don't fall into temptation. What is tempting Peter then in the garden? The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. He went away again the second time and prayed, saying, O my Father, if this cup may not pass away from me, except I drink it, thy will be done. And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. And he left them and went away again, and prayed the third time, saying the same words. Then cometh he to his disciples and saith unto them, Sleep on now. See, he says, okay, sleep on. And take your rest. Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Remember that. Rise, let us be going. Behold, he is at hand that doth betray me. All right, next verse 47. And while he yet spoke, lo, Judas, one of the 12, came, and with him a great multitude with swords and staves from the chief priests and elders of the temple, of the people. It can be in the temple, that's where the chief priests also were. Now he that betrayed him gave them a sign, saying, Whomsoever I shall kiss, that same is he. Hold him fast. And we always say, betrayed by a kiss. That's where it comes from. And forthwith he came to Jesus and said, Hail, Master, and kissed him. And Jesus said unto him, Friend. Yeah, imagine that, He still calls him friend, and he knows what he's doing. Wherefore art thou come? Then came they and laid hands on Jesus and took him. And behold, one of them which were with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck a servant of the high priest and smote off his ear. Then said Jesus unto him, Put up again thy sword into his place, for all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. That's also a saying we use a lot today. Die by the sword, live by the sword, die by the sword. Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then shall the scriptures be fulfilled, that thus it must be? In that same hour said Jesus to the multitudes, Are ye come out as against a thief, with swords and staves to take me? I sat daily with you teaching in the temple, and ye laid not hold of me. So these guys were the guys sitting in the temples listening to his teachings, and they knew he was not a fighter, evil, and here they come with their swords and everything. But all this was done that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled. Then all the disciples forsake him and fled. Yeah. We would have done the same. They ran. All right. So here in Matthew, he declares that mostly that the scriptures must be fulfilled. That what was prophesied, that was in it, that in other words, that was written in the Torah must be fulfilled. All the prophecies must be fulfilled. So Matthew puts a lot of focus on the prophecies must be fulfilled. So now we look at Mark. I'm not going to read the whole one, so don't worry. We're not going to do the whole thing of Mark here. I've got some verses here and some I've taken out. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, that this day, even in the night, before the cock crow twice, thou shalt deny me thrice. But he spoke to more vehemently, If I should die with thee, I will not deny thee in any way. Likewise also said they all. You don't know that. You've never read that. You all just blame Peter. He said, I will not deny you, Lord. It says here, they all said it. We will not deny you. It's not just Peter. But again, we were taught only Peter said it, because he spoke to Peter, but it says, likewise also said they all. We will not deny him. And they came to the place which was named Gethsemane, and he saith to his disciples, Sit here while I pray. And he taketh with him Peter, James, and John, there's the names, and began to sore amazed and to be very heavy. Watch ye and pray, lest ye enter into temptation. The spirit truly is ready, but the flesh is weak. And he cometh to the third time and saith unto them, Sleep on now and take your rest. It is enough, the hour is come. Behold, the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of the sinners. And immediately, while he yet spoke, comes Judas, one of the 12, and with him a great multitude with swords and staves from the chief priests. There it says again, the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. Chief priests, scribes, church people. These were not normal people coming to soldiers or, it was the normal church people that sat in the church that came to take him here. And there followed him a certain young man having a linen cloth cast about his naked body, and the young men laid hold of him. And he left the linen cloth and fled from them naked. We spoke about this before. This is the only one that mentions the guy that ran past naked. We've spoken about this before. I just wanted to show you that, but it's only in Mark, about this naked guy running away there. But I want to say something about this naked guy that you might not have think about, but let's first see. Who was found naked in the first garden? Adam and Eve, because of sin. Remember, Jesus is going back to the garden where it all began, to fix all the problems where it all began. He's giving you a type and an image of what he's fixing, what happened with the problems that came in the first garden with the first Adam. Adam made the mistake. All right? So, in the first garden, Adam and Eve were found naked. Now it says this, a naked young man left a linen cloth. Who's this? What is this linen cloth? If you can look in your Bible, there's a lot to do with linen cloth. The high priest had to wear only a white linen cloth to go in. So white is to do with righteousness. Jesus wore white linen cloths. But they had to leave that. He left that. Look here. Revelations 19 verse 14. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon a white horse, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. See how everything connects? This guy left the white linen, which is talking about Jesus, who's the one that's cleansing, who's righteous, clean, to cover the nakedness. Jesus is the one that's going to cover the nakedness now, not the fig leaves. Jesus is coming to cover the white cloth, to deal with the nakedness. Nakedness is an image and a type of sin. Ezekiel 44. They shall enter into my sanctuary, and they shall come near to my table to minister unto me, and they shall keep my charge. And it shall come to pass that when they enter into the gates of the inner court, in the inner court, they shall be clothed with linen garments, and the wool shall come upon them while they minister in the gates of the inner court and within. They shall have linen bonnets upon their heads, and shall have linen breeches upon their loins. They shall not gird themselves with anything that causeth sweat. Causes sweat. We're going to talk on that now. So you see, the linen speaks about something. The high priest wore this linen. Revelation says Jesus is the one wearing the linen. Here this guy comes running past. And the Bible is so perfectly written to say he drops that linen and runs naked. He's dropping that for Jesus to say that's what he's here for. That's what he's going to do now. And he drops it in the garden. He could have dropped it anywhere else. He dropped it in the garden because in the first garden, the problem with the nakedness started. And here Jesus is going to use the linen to cover the nakedness now. I also said here, the linen he dropped was taken for the sweat, to take the sweat away. Jesus also came to take the sweat away. Because what was said immediately after they sinned? From today forth, men, besweet van jou aangesig. You will sweat no more because that linen takes away the sweat. We don't have to work anymore like that. How many people still use that verse today? If you want to live, sweat van jou aangesig, nee? Gaan jy jou geldjie verdien. No, Jesus came to take that away. That was a curse on man. That wasn't Jesus' plan. Yeah, we still work but it's not like a curse anymore. But today we use that still, that curse still, we live under that thing. Jesus says that linen takes away the sweat. Jesus takes away the sweat for us to do stuff now. He made us free from all the stuff that we don't have to sweat anymore. All right, Mark. So this book of Mark that we just read deals with the naked state of man. Remember, Matthew pointed out that the prophecy is before. Mark points out, the only one that points out the nakedness, the sin nature that Jesus came to eradicate in that garden. Luke. And he came out and went as he was wont to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples also followed him. And when he was at the place, he said unto them, pray that ye may enter into the temptation. Again here, don't fall into temptation. And there appeared an angel unto him from heaven, strengthening him. Who have ever read that verse? I've never heard anybody say that. Look who came to help Jesus. An angel, while he was in the garden. I can guarantee most of you have never read that verse. I have never read that verse. He came to help him. Who was placed in the other garden when the garden was closed? An angel. And yet the angel comes to help him. Because the angels closed the other garden, who was standing at the door of the other garden. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was as it were great drops of blood falling down to the ground. Then Jesus said unto the chief priests and captains of the temple, the who? The chief priests, the captains of the temple. See how each one explains them differently, saying these are the church people that's here. And the elders which were come to him, be ye come out as against a thief with swords and staves? When I was daily with you in the temple, you stretched forth no hands against me, but this is your hour and the power of darkness. He's telling these church-going believers, the priests and the elders, whose power are you operating in? The power of darkness. Religion is still doing it today, functioning a lot of times under the power of darkness. And I know people don't want to hear that, but it's true. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed, unfortunately. Sad to say, but it hasn't changed. So again, here the religious people came and they acted in the darkness, in the evil. That's why John the Baptist called him, your father is a snake. These people that's coming in, these church people, the temple people, church people, whatever you want to call it in today's language, do you realize they have the same character than the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Look in whose fruit are they operating. In that tree, not in the tree of life. They're operating with all the sins we read about and spoke about last time when we spoke about the fruits. They chose, it's a tree of choice, they chose evil. These are religious people, the ones standing in front preaching, and they're acting this way. Now, he had sweat that turned into blood. Why? Why? Genesis 3 verse 19. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground, for out of it wast thou taken. For the dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return. So we spoke about this. We like to quote this last bit. Stof tot stof, dust to dust. But it says that in the sweat of thy shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground. All right? So we're going to sweat and we're going to die. That's going to change one day. But he's already broken the curse of the sweat. All right? You must understand that we don't earn our money by sweating. We work because we love Jesus, and he supplies money in ways that we work and that to support ourselves and live. It's not a curse anymore, like it was given here. So the sweat curse were given and received by man in the first garden. And here he was in the garden where he was taking it away, that curse. He's stopping that curse that the enemy brought. Why and how? By the redemption of the blood. He's taking away that curse. I mean, none of your works, in other words, your sweat, your religious sweat, works that we do so often in churches and stuff, can save you. Only His blood can. And He chose it to be so. His blood is the one that saves you, not what you do, your works that you sweat. This cup, I want to touch on that. This cup, Psalm 116 verse 13 says, I will take this cup of salvation and call upon the name of the Lord. You see, the cup, again, it's got different meanings. You get a cup of salvation. That's what he's saying with this cup. It's representing something that he's got to take. Right. So Luke, which we read here, took away the doing itself curse, man's way. He's talking about that, to take that away. Now John, the last one. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples over the brook Cedron, where was a garden into which he entered and his disciples. Jesus therefore, knowing all things that should come upon him, went forth and said unto them, Whom seek ye? They answered him, Jesus of Nazareth, the one of no significance, the branch of no significance. Jesus said unto them, I am he. And Judas also, which betrayed him, stood with them. As soon as then, as he had said unto them, I am he, they went backwards and fell to the ground. Why did they fall? Because he said this word, I am. That's saying I'm God. I am who I am. What did God say to Moses in the desert? When he asked him, what must I say? Who's sending me? He said, I am. Why I am? Umyani always said this over and over again. Because I am is not a finished sentence. What does it mean if you say I am? I am what? If you tell me I am, I'm going to ask you, what are you? But Jesus came and he fulfilled all the I ams. I am the way. That's why he said that. I am the life. He fulfilled all the I ams. And here he's saying, I am. And when he said that a power was released out of him, that these unbelievers, not believers, these unbelievers fell to the ground. But of the power that just came out of him when he said those words, I am. All right? Then people today want to fight, can believers fall over or can they not fall over? And is it forward or backwards, right? Or which way must you fall? And they have religious fights about that. Here, unbelievers fell to the ground. Then asked he them again, Who seek ye? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus answered, I have told you that I am he. If therefore you seek me, let these go their way. So he's asking, let the others go. So here in John, he's showing the power of who he is. That he is the great I am. The power that can conquer sin and death. The I am. Remember, in the beginning when he started preaching, he told them in the temple, I am. And they want to throw him off the cliff. That's how they hate those words. Because how dare he say he's God? He's the Father, the one they're worshiping. I was thinking, should I say it, should I not say it? But I just want to give you this bit to end this off with. Jesus sweat blood. Yeah? His sweat turned into blood. Why? We know now that he said, what we read there. But think of it. Why? Why is his sweat turned into blood? And I want you to think of it this way. This blood had to come. Because something was waiting for the blood to come in the garden. At the garden and everything. Because something happened in the beginning. Two brothers made an offer. And God came and said, your brother's blood is calling out. I don't know, how's his brother's blood calling out, does the Bible say? The ground is calling it out. Cain and Abel. And here Jesus started bleeding. His sweat is as blood. So the sweat is already that is blood, is already coming forth because the ground needs to be satisfied of the thing that it's waiting for. And he's starting to sweat blood because there's a blood that needs to bring atonement of everything that happened, that sin brought in. Because remember, that was the first evil thing that happened in the Bible that was written. the sinful thing, the murder. So he started bleeding because the blood needed to come to cleanse what was going to happen or what happened in the garden. All right, so there's more to it, but I don't want to go to that now. There's a bit more to it. I'm going to one day, next year, January, talk more on that. Not now. But I want you to see there's something happening. You remember it. The sweat was like blood. Turned to blood. All right? So there's something beautiful that's happening here. It's not just because of him stressing like they all make these studies of why did Jesus eat. He did that because it's saying something. He's saying something by that happening. It's not so much to do with the stress and all that. That can cause it, and they all say it might cause it. But it happened because it was saying something. That this sweat and this blood, because it's not by works anymore, by sweat anymore, it's now by Him. We don't do things by our way. It's now the way of the blood by Jesus that He brought forth in the garden. So next year I'm going to talk on that. But I want you to see everything He did here, even with the sweat and the blood. Because remember, there were blood in the first garden. Where were the blood in the first garden? God had to kill an animal to cover their nakedness. There was blood spilled. And He's answering that blood that was spilled. Because blood had to come in from that day. Blood was needed for atonement. And He's fulfilling it now, there, in the garden. There's something else going to happen with the blood. But there in the garden, He fulfilled the blood that was spilled for the sin. His blood's coming in. Not animal sacrifices anymore. He's now the lamb that comes in. So basically, if you understand what the trees are saying, the story about the trees, and where it all started, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, He came and He did everything that happened in the garden. He took care of it Himself, the last Adam. He fulfilled it. He brought correction, and mainly He dealt with all that sinful stuff. And He showed He's the one that will deal with it. He's going to take everything that happened in the garden with Adam. Now He, the last Adam, will take care of it. And He will not make the mistakes that happened in the first garden where they chose the wrong tree. And we need to understand why He did that. So at the end of the day, what is it actually all saying? He said it at the cross. It is finished. What does that mean? The garden is open. The garden is not closed anymore. It's open. We can enter. The garden is open. The angels came to Him. They opened the garden. Because remember, they closed it. It is now open. Jesus opened the garden for us 2,000 years ago. We may enter. It's not now anymore a literal garden. It's now a spiritual garden. But we can enter. But we can go there and walk with Him when He invites us in. But I want you to see how Jesus perfectly took everything that man messed up. There's no other way to say it. And He brought correction in all those areas to the T, the detail, the naked man running. His power coming in, who's the one that cleanses and helps us. Everything was said perfectly in all the Gospels that to show that He's dealing with everything. Was not one Gospel's got everything in it. But if you read all four, you see He deals with every little thing. The blood, the nakedness. He deals with all of that stuff. And He cleansed us. And He took it to the cross. All that stuff that He had taken there. To go nail it to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil for the last time. All that stuff, He took it because He fulfilled it, and He nailed it to the tree, and it's done, and it's finished. It's got no more power. So you don't work by sweat anymore. That's why you can pray and have labor without labor pains today. You can pray and ask that you don't have labor pains because the curse is stopped. And you can walk in that. He's done it 2,000 years ago, and we're progressively walking it out, but it is done, and we can walk in that. I'm not saying everything is going to work, but it's been open for us to walk in the stuff that was given. So now we only eat of the tree of life. We don't actually even have to worry about the tree of the knowledge because it was cut off, cut down at the cross. The devil, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, nailed to that wooden cross, and he's still stuck there. He's got no more power because Jesus took care of every little detail that man made a mistake on.